Please help me welcome our speaker, Jan Lehman. Jan is an executive coach and the CEO of CTC Productivity, and we are delighted to have you here, Jan. The session is all yours.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. So first off, Casey, thank you so much for inviting me to be on this webinar series. I just love how our organizations are so aligned. My take on your organization, which matches mine, is it's not just about teaching our team members how to work smarter, but it's ultimately about doing right by them, and that leads to happiness. And that's the long game we're always looking for. So super excited to be here. So a good way to think about where we fit in, like what our niche is within the coaching and training world, is if you or any of your employees need time back in their day, that's when you would call us. So it's pretty clean and simple. It doesn't matter what we're doing. It's about bringing time back in your day. So anyway, super excited to be here. Let's get going. Do have chat up because I am going to be asking a lot of questions throughout. We want it as interactive as possible. So do me a favor and enter into chat. What do you think are your three most valuable resources and that you waste every day? And I'll give you one hint. They start with a T. Three most valuable resources that you waste every day that start with a T. Yeah, awesome, Pinar. Perfect. What are the other two T's? We've got time so far. Three T's. Oh, thoughts. I love that. Technology. Good job, Casey May. Yeah. Oh, Frank. Awesome. You came in on the last one. Perfect. Good job. I love thoughts, Kate. That was fun. We probably do waste our thoughts because we don't have time to think strategically or creatively. That's a very good point. So it's time, talent, and technology. And time, I'm curious if you would all agree with me, but I think time is more valuable than money these days, in particular for leaders in organizations. Can you kind of do the math on that one? Just seems like in this world of Amazon, DoorDash, all that kind of stuff, everybody's just trying to get any minute they can back in their day. Does anybody agree that time might actually be more valuable than money these days? And if you disagree, put that in too. We can have a little discussion. But yeah, awesome. Thanks, Casey May. Yeah, it definitely is one of our most precious resources. Technology is one of our underutilized resources. We're going to just touch on tech a little bit today. But the way it all fits together is when you maximize time and you maximize technology, then you're going to get all this time back in your day. And then and only then is that going to be the time that you could maximize your talent and the talent of your team. So that's how it all fits together. So if they're putting out fires all day long, just spend their days on email all day long, and they're not using their brilliant minds, like their thoughts, like Kate said, then you're really wasting their talent. And so that's how it goes. So do me a favor, put a 1, 2, and a 3 wherever you're taking notes. And we're going to build in some accountability today, because I would be super sad if you listened to me yammer on for an hour and then you didn't. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. It's kind of scratchy. My apologies. But if you listen to me yammer on for an hour and you left and you didn't do anything, because ironically, I would have wasted your time. So we're going to have an opportunity at the very end for everybody to share action items, ideally one, but maybe you've got three that you actually are going to take action on. And I'm going to give you a hint on what these action items should look like. If you are struggling with your personal productivity, this can be all about you. It could be, these are my action items to help my personal productivity. Go for it. If, as I'm going through the session, you find you might be doing some of these things, I don't want you to disconnect and go multitask and do other things. I want you to shift your focus, because one of the biggest blind spots with leaders is that they assume people work the way they work. And I will tell you, I would not be doing this time management session for years and years and years if every employee across the country did these things. They don't. So your action items might be, how do I start boldly role modeling and empowering people to actually do the things that you've been doing for years that you assume they were doing? And then the top third option, and this is the creme de la creme, and you'll score extra points from me, is I would love it if one of your action items is something you're going to bring back to your entire department, organization, so that you actually truly get exponential benefits from the ideas. So that's where we're actually headed today. So, oh, it went backwards. That was kind of funny. I don't know how to drive. All right, do me a favor. Again, we need you to have chat up. Enter into chat what gets in the way of your productivity. So I'm confident in the material I'm going to go through today, but if you touch on something and I can kind of weave it in, I definitely want to try. But what do you think are your challenges? What gets in the way of your personal productivity every day? Be open and vulnerable and honest. Please enter into chat. And I ask questions so I can drink water, just so you know. Shifting strategies. Yep, Frank, thank you. Approvals. Okay. What else you got? Too many responsibility, lots of hats, Betsy. Yep. Doing the jobs of other people. Oh, that's so frustrating. I feel your pain, Lindsay. Oh, wow, Sabrina, it's SMEs who won't cooperate. Yeah, not do their part. Okay, awesome. What about in the world of time management strategies? Like, is anybody interrupted or distracted during the day and that impacts your productivity? Too many meetings, that kind of stuff? Nobody's got interruptions, distractions. All right. Good for you. You live in a good world. So, all right. So, second most important question. Thank you, Pinar, that you do get distracted. Second most important question. And I want everybody to enter this, and I want you to be really honest. Um, yeah. Oh, thank you, Betsy. Appreciate that. Oh, yeah, Rebecca, the distraction at home. Yep, that's a real thing. Do me a favor, enter into chat how would you feel, or no, how do you feel when you go home at the end of the day and you haven't been very productive? So you leave at the end of the day, you haven't been very productive. How personally do you feel? Just be raw and honest and enter into chat. Tired and frustrated. That's usually what we hear. It's amazing how being productive energizes you and being unproductive just makes you tired. I feel bad. Yeah, and I remind myself to make sure I get it done the next day. Yeah, kind of like then you have to carry it over. I want a nap. That's back to the tired thing. Frustrated that I'm not doing enough. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Those are great. So keep those thoughts in mind. So perfect. So let's get going on the content. So this is Doug. Doug is or was, he just retired, the managing partner of a 50-person law firm. And Doug was like all of you. Doug really wanted to improve his personal productivity and he wanted to improve the productivity of everybody in his law firm. And the thing I liked about Doug is he had the right kind of long game in mind, because when I asked him why he called me, he didn't say, I want my attorneys to bill more hours. That was not the words that came out of his mouth. He said, I really am worried about burnout. He's like, I've got attorneys that are working 12-hour days, but they're only billing like 6 hours. I don't really understand where the inefficiency is. He actually assumed it was email. He said everybody complains about email, everybody's on email all day long, that kind of thing. My personal opinion is that email is really often the symptom, it's not the problem. It's actually interesting to look at email and you can kind of see patterns. You can start to see patterns. I love coaching somebody and looking at their email because you can see where somebody is being a traffic cop and they're not delegating full authority to somebody, or they're a perfectionist or a procrastinator. There's lots of things you can see in kind of emails and what's trickling to the top. So anyway, we went on to start coaching. I started coaching Doug and a couple other attorneys at his law firm, and I'm going to share a lot of the strategies that we did there. So I'm curious if you're struggling with the same thing that Doug's lawyers were struggling with. Do you ever come to work and you're super excited because you have like white space on your calendar and you don't know how, like somebody must have canceled a meeting, right? And you're really excited because you get to work on that thing that you've been wanting to work on, that you need to work on. But before you do that, you're like, nope, let me check all my communication tools, right? Let me check email, let me check chat, and then channel is a new kind of communication tool, and you're checking those, and before you know it, somebody's taking you down a rabbit hole. Does that happen to any of you we call that the tail wagging the dog, meaning your brilliant brain is no longer in charge. Thanks, Frank and Lindsay. Appreciate that daily. Yeah, and it's happening definitely to all levels of the organization. And so we just you're really it's the tail wagging the dog. Your brilliant brain's not in charge. And we want you to get you back and focused on your most important work so that when you leave at the end of the day, you're not feeling tired and all those kind of things. So what I actually see in every industry and every business is really that people are just busy, they're not productive. If I had the authority to declare it an epidemic, I would absolutely declare it an epidemic. It's crazy to me how much time is wasted in organizations. I think people actually think productivity is something that it's not. Productivity is actually intentional. Productivity is a slower pace. It's more white space on your calendar. A lot of people think productivity is bouncing around, multitasking, juggling many plates at the same time. That's the opposite of productivity. So, two tips for you at this point. The first one is realize that you're typically never going to get to everything on your to do list. You're never going to get to every single email. So, you have to be really selective about where you spend your time, and you want to focus on your most important work. So hopefully your sales reps follow this kind of philosophy. So they when they finally have time to make sales calls, they should always be thinking about who are the customers that always buy from us. And I'm going to call them first because I have a higher probability of a sale than calling the people that never buy from us. So they're being really smart about how they're using their time. We want all your employees to do the exact same thing. And so you want to really narrow in, you want to follow the Pareto principle. Anybody know what the Pareto principle is? Yeah, awesome, Frank. Thank you. I knew somebody would get it. So it's the 80-20 rule. So you want to be really focused in on what are your wait, and then Frank put a question. Frank answered it and then put a question. I don't know why. That's awesome. Oh, you're so good. You were totally right, Frank. So it's really about thinking about what's the 20% of tasks you should be focused on that are going to give you an 80% return on that investment. Not every task is weighted the same. Not every email is weighted the same, but many employees will come into a business or come into their day and they'll just respond to like 30 emails so they feel productive, even if those 30 emails were not the most important thing. See where the confusion is about productivity versus busyness. Second tip for you here is that you probably never thought about this, but when you are responding to someone's communication, your email, a chat, or something, you're typically helping that person be productive. You're not typically doing your most important work. Now, I'm not telling you you can ignore people, right? But it's got to be a balance. It's about you getting and doing your most important work every day, plus, then addressing the questions and challenges from others. That's where we're headed today. So I will forewarn you that these strategies are going to sound really simple, but I will promise you they are extremely powerful. So one of the best things you can do is actually identify your top 3 priorities every day and stay focused on those priorities. And one of the reasons that I like this is not just to make a short list so you're focused, but many people right now go home at the end of the day and they feel really defeated. They're like, I had 100 emails when I got to work. I still have 100 emails when I left work. My to-do list the same, right? There's like no proof that they did anything. So having a short list and feeling like you're checking those 3 things off, you should feel really good when you head home at the end of the day because you know you did your most important work. So there's a really important mindset aspect to this. Now, if you don't believe me how powerful it is, there's a really good story you could search up on the internet. It's about a consultant named Ivy Lee. And Ivy was a productivity consultant and he worked with Bethlehem Steel over 100 years ago. And Ivy gave the leaders different ideas and strategies that they could apply. And he was a smarter consultant than I was because he said, don't pay me for my time to give you the ideas, pay me for the value you get from the ideas. And I'm happy to report 3 months after he provided his ideas, they paid him $25,000 in that was 100 years ago. In today's numbers, that'd be close to $500,000. So these ideas are simple and easy, but super powerful. So identify your top 3 priorities is a key thing everybody should be doing every day. And there's back when Bethlehem Steel was rolling out this concept, there was a lot more white space on the calendar. So people could do their most important work. Because what Bethlehem Steel said is identify your top priorities and do them first before you do anything else, before you attend a client meeting, anything like that. And that's how they really hit major success and got the value from the consultant. And so there's no longer like all this white space on a calendar. So most of us need to sort of proactively block our calendar to do our most important work. So I know you know how to do time blocking, where you block an hour and you work on a certain thing. But focus time is what we call the time that you would work on your most important, most difficult, most complex tasks. And it's like time blocking on steroids. So it's really about identifying the time of day your brain is the sharpest and protecting that time and making sure you do your most complicated, mentally complicated work during that time. So I'll give you an example, and then I want you to be ready to enter into chat what time of day that you are most productive. So I'm a morning person. What I mean by that is I'm not a morning person like I get out of bed and I want to go to the gym. I'm not that kind of morning person. I'm a morning person in that my brain is just it's not distracted, it's alert, it's focused, and I can do my most deepest thinking, my most creative thinking. I can write stuff perfectly the first time and not have to rewrite it. So it would be really silly for me to do something like emails during the morning, right? And it'd be really silly for me to try to do complex work in the afternoon. So enter into chat. What's the time of day that you feel you're most productive? Is it morning, afternoon, or evening? Yeah, you all so far are definitely matching the demographics in your organization. And on average, sorry, Rebecca, I got it. Oh, but Rebecca and Sabrina, I don't know how I laugh at people who are focused in the afternoon because that's when I want to take a nap. So that's when I do emails. But it's awesome. You really are seeing the demographics. 65% of your employees are focused in the morning. And most organizations have like meetings in the morning. So you really want to think about, do the meetings that we're having with everybody really require their brain to be at the sharpest, or should we allow time in the morning for them to do their most important work and maybe move meetings later? So part for you to consider. So I always recommend every knowledge worker blocks at least an hour a day for uninterrupted work, an hour a day, like reoccurring appointment on your calendar. So 2 o'clock wall is real, Bo. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I explained this concept to Doug. So, and he thought, you know what, this seems like a really smart idea. And in fact, I for knowledge workers, I always recommend everybody at a minimum have an hour a day. But if you have people who are really on your production line, so if you're a service industry and you have people that are producing your product, like an attorney, a CPA, a designer, an architect, an engineer, any of those kind of people, I actually recommend more like 3 to 4 hours a day. And that's actually what we recommended to Doug's firm and what he adopted. And so at this point I was coaching Doug and three other attorneys. Oh, I forgot this part. So I was coaching Doug. This was pre-pandemic, and I made the comment to him because it was pre-pandemic. They were all in the office, and they had that open door policy. And I said, if you're going to do focus time, you really got to communicate to others, not to bug you, right? And so I came back a couple weeks later for the next coaching call, and I remember seeing on Doug's door. I wish I would have taken a picture. It was a tacky sticky note on his door, and I felt like it was even slammed on there like sideways, and it was handwriting. It's a prestigious law firm, and it had the sticky note on the managing partner's door. Why was that good that Doug did that? Enter into chat, please. Why was it good that Doug put the sticky note on his door? Yeah, awesome, Greg. He's communicating, right? He's telling other people what's going on so they don't bug him. So he's being proactive. And so then I came back a couple weeks later. At this point, I was coaching about three attorneys down the hallway over here, but on six doors. Now they're nice typed up signs. They look a lot nicer. Now what's happening? So again, I'm coaching three people down the hallway, but on six doors, there's nice typed up focus time signs. What's happening now in the organization? Yeah, creating a culture of focus time. Nice job, Tori, for sure. So it's about creating this culture of productivity. And to do that, you need others to adopt the strategies. You need to be a role model. So the other attorneys are like, what the heck is focus time? And is it helping? And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm like hitting my billable hours easier. And they're like, well, can we do it? And they're like, yeah, if Doug does it, we can do it. Right. Because Doug was being the ultimate, very deliberate role model. So everybody could see this is something they could start doing. And so he was empowering others in the organization. To this day, they use a red magnetic dot on their cubicles and their door frame to symbolize focus time. And you can't abuse it. You can't have it up all day long. But if you see it, you do not interrupt unless it's a true emergency. And we'll talk about that. So I'm going to do a little detour for a second. And this is where we're going to do a switch from time management being an individual sport to being more of a team sport. And so, but just a couple comments about my background. So coming out of school, just so you have a little bit of like sort of my history. Coming out of school, I worked for Accenture, and my clients were Securities and Exchange Commission, United Airlines, so massively huge Fortune 500 companies. I then went to work for Kraft Foods. In my last position with them, I was an expatriate, and I had over 60 employees across the Scandinavian countries. And we were responsible in all of those positions with driving productivity across those organizations. And so I started my business 15 years ago, and this is what I'm doing now, exactly what I did then, but with better sized companies, smaller organizations that I can really work with. And but early on in my career at Kraft, my first position at Kraft, I actually had the worst department, believe it or not. Like I had the worst department at Kraft. My kids did not think it was very cool that I wasn't working on the new tech. They did think it was cool. I worked for the company, had the Wienermobile, so I scored points. Do you guys know that they tried to change the name of the Wienermobile? Did anybody hear about this? This is like so funny. I'm guessing it's the name, the word wiener that people were sensitive about. They tried to change it to the Frankmobile, but there was such a revolt. People were wearing t-shirts that said, bring the wiener back. This is crazy. Anyway, that's what's going on in Madison, Wisconsin. But anyway, Oscar Mayer is part of the Kraft family. So anyway, but when I was at Kraft, I had the worst department, literally. And I would have VPs, directors come up to me and say, Jan, you've got the worst department. You know that. And I'm like, yep, well aware of it. We're working on the older technology. And they say, well, what is your secret sauce? Because you're actually able to hire the high potential talent within the Kraft organization. Kraft Foods North America Information Systems Department was 350 people. So we were competing with other departments, but we could recruit and retain the top talent in that information systems department because we'd come up with a way of creating a respectful work environment. So there are so many employees in your organization that would love to be more productive, but they can't because the people around them are not being productive or allowing them to be productive. So this is really about how do we create that culture of productivity so individuals, teams, everybody can be more productive. My personal opinion, what I'm seeing is that everybody is really selfish right now. I don't know. Do you see that? You kind of see it. I'm on the list. I'm super selfish. I realized the other day, and so while being selfish, what I mean by that is we don't realize the ripple effect would cause other people, and by that our actions. So I realized the other day I had stopped proofreading any communication I sent out, and when I started proofreading it again, 50% of the time there was a typo in it that said something different. So no wonder I had emails going back and forth. So I'm now trying to be a more respectful leader, trying to really look at the emails or any communication before they're sent, make sure there's no confusion so we don't have that the ripple effect of the back and forth. So does anybody feel like they kind of see that in themselves? They're just rushing and realizing maybe they could be more respectful of others? Yeah, always. Thank you, Alexandra. Yeah, disease a choice. Bo, such good. Oh, I love that. That's a great, that's a great tagline. I love it. Yeah, we're doing it. We're not trying to be mean. We just don't think about it. So that's impacting other people's productivity. So another question for you, go ahead and enter into chat on this one. How much time on average do you think you lose when let's say you're in focus time and you get a pop-up, an email pop-up or something, and you read the pop-up, and even if you don't respond, but your executive functioning was interrupted mid-thought, and you come over here, you read it, and you don't respond, how much time on average do you lose when you come back and then have to kind of backtrack? Oh, Bo, you're so good. Let's see what everybody else will guess. There's lots of different studies on it. So there's studies all the way up to like an hour, and there's studies that are less, but Bo has in line with the one that I was actually looking at. It's over 23 minutes. Um, some of you are impacted more, some of you are impacted less, but you are kidding yourself if you think you and your employees are not interrupted or distracted. 100% kidding yourself. So now be vulnerable, enter into chat, be honest. How many times a day are you interrupted or distracted? Every 5 minutes. Allison, yours is real, at least every hour. Yeah, 16,000. You've got some funny people on the line. I love it, Greg or John. Awesome, hundreds. So let's take Greg. Does it even make sense for Greg to come to work if he's losing 23 minutes? He's taking one step forward, two back, right? So you can start to see the massive time waste. And this is also when mistakes happen, and this is when stress goes out of the roof. So my personal recommendation is to allow interruptions on your terms. And what I mean by that is, do you know on average how many times a day we pick up our phones and look at them? On average across the population, how many times a day do people pick up their phone and look at it? Higher than Greg's. I don't. Oh, Allison, you're a great role model. Oh, Betsy. You guys both went 500. There's the study I saw was around 300 times a day. So my personal opinion is allow interruptions on your terms. If you know after an hour of focus time, the first thing you're going to do is grab your phone, and you will because we all have FOMO. We want to know what's going on. If you know you're going to do that, why would you let somebody steal 23 minutes? It doesn't make any sense. But so allow interruptions on your terms. What I mean by that is turn off all the noise. Turn off all the text messaging, the chat pop-ups, the pop-ups and channels, your email notifications, all those things. The only notifications that should pop up in your face are time-sensitive notifications. So maybe you have a meeting in 15 minutes. You might want a pop-up that says, hey, start wrapping up if you kind of lose track of time, those kind of things. So turn all notifications off. Does anybody do that currently? Does anybody have all notifications off and they don't have the pop-ups and the pings? Greg, awesome. Greg, would you ever go back to having notifications on? Yeah, once you try it, you'll never go back. I know it's probably a scary thought for many of you, but it's such a powerful thing to consider. So all right. So the other thing I'd hear from people is they'll go, okay, Jan, I drank the Kool-Aid. I block time for focus time. I turn off notifications and I'm in my office. And all of a sudden, all these things pop up in my head. I forgot to do. I forgot to call Jose for the second day in a row. And what will most people do at that moment, even though calling Jose is not that important, what will most people do in that moment? They'll call him. Yeah, we're scared to death we're going to forget. And I have to say, in this day and age of the younger generation maybe being less focused and the older generation, not remembering as well, that kind of stuff, it's a real issue. And so we all need a backup to our brain. So has anybody ever used the task management tool that's been connected to Outlook or Gmail? It's oh, awesome. I'm glad you have something within OneNote. That's perfect. But there's task management tools in particular. Allison, you might actually want to look at the task management tools because it's a good place to actually put tasks, and you'll see why. But there's a task management tool that's been connected to Outlook and Gmail for years. I've never wholeheartedly recommended it, though, I got to be honest, because where are you typically, physically, where are you when thoughts pop up in your head of things you forgot to do at work at that day? In bed, at home. Usually there's always somebody says in the shower. We haven't gotten that one yet. So thanks, Brian. There's always somebody. Yeah, the point is you're not in front of your desktop, right? And I'm a productivity consultant. So I don't want to just tell you a bunch of productivity hacks, My goal in working with you is actually to change your habits so this becomes a lifelong thing that you do every day. And so if it's not a consistent thing you do, it can't become habit. But good news is there's an app for that now, because there's an app for everything. So you can use any kind of to do app, but if you do use the Microsoft suite of tools, you definitely want to be using the Microsoft to do app. I'll tell you why. It's because there's a lot of built-in integrations basically, and I'll show you an example later. But any to do app basically looks like this. So you want to just get in the habit of anytime something pops in your head, you grab the phone and you put it in there, and you can use voice to text technology. So does anybody want to admit that when they go to add something to their to-do list, they see something they forgot to do and they go down that rabbit hole? Does that happen with anybody? Because that happens with a lot of people. So to deter that, yep, thanks, Alexandria. So the voice to text technology is a great way to get it out of your head and not see what's lurking in there. So, okay, just for fun, what are the 3 reasons it's hard to ignore the ping of your email pop-up, the chat messages, all that kind of stuff? 3 reasons it's hard to ignore the ping. FOMO for sure. Yep. Awesome. Yeah, it could be something wrong, something urgent, which is the FOMO. Gratification for sure. That's the dopamine hit. Did anybody think about Pavlov's dog? What? I hate the red bubbles. Tori, you hate them like sitting there. You want to get rid of them. Got it. Yes, totally. Like that bugs me. I feel like there's something unfinished I need to do. I love that. So that's awesome. Yeah, there's 3 reasons, according to me. One is Pavlov's dog. So at this point, you are trained. When you hear a bell, you respond. It's just something that's been ingrained in you for years now. It's much easier for you to turn notifications off and figure out how you're going to break that habit of always looking and like looking at the red bubbles or hearing the ping, any of that kind of stuff. We can get distracted auditorily or visually. Both are bad. The second one is FOMO. A couple people mentioned that one. So it's a fear of missing out. It's why we pick up our phone 300 times a day. We want to know what's going on. We're curious. What if it's my boss? What if it's my customer? All that kind of stuff. And then the last one, which is one of the most important ones I want to make you aware of, is what Bo was saying, it's gratification. So what happens actually is when you cheat and do something you're not supposed to do. So let's say you're supposed to be working on your budget during focus time and you see the pop-up and you think, oh, I bet that's more fun than what I'm doing now. And you go read the email or whatever it was, you actually get a dopamine hit when you do something you're not supposed to do. And so I always joke you're getting each other high all day long because of the ping, ping, pinging. And I mean it very seriously. And what a lot of people don't realize about dopamine is it stays in your body for 24 to 48 hours. And dopamine craves dopamine. So for a lot of your employees, they'll get distracted and be in this firefighting mode, and it's really hard for them to come back and be in a more focused way of working. And so they're just kind of working on whatever is the hottest fire of the day. So again, we want you doing your most important work every day. So one of the things Bo, you're so fun. I love that. So one of the things that will happen if we did like a company-wide training, every single time we do a company-wide training, employees would come up to us after and they'd say, Jan, we would love to do every single one of these ideas, but we can't because everything in our business is urgent. And so we want to address that conversation. And I'm starting to blame Amazon for this. I got to be honest. And it's not Amazon's fault. But think about the younger generation and the world they're being raised in. So they can order something on the internet and it can show up the same day. They can order DoorDash and it's there right away, right? Everything's ASAP. So unless you as a leader reset expectation about what is our internal response time, the younger generation will default to ASAP. People of an older generation will default to a slower pace. But it's really important you're all on the same page and you have a common understanding of how much time you should be, how much time should be expected to be responding. So we came up with this grid, and there's more information in the book about this and a lot more other things, but we came up with what we call effective communication guidelines. And I introduced the word emergency. So an emergency means I don't care that I'm causing the CEO to lose 23 minutes. That's how important it is. Not every business has a true emergency except for safety. If somebody's hurt, having a heart attack, of course, that's an emergency. A lot of businesses, there's no true emergency. Everything could wait an hour if you think of it that way. But then the other important thing is you need to define the word urgent. What does urgent mean in your business and introduce it with a clear definition to everybody? And so it could be end of day, 4 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. If you are committed to creating a respectful work environment for all of your employees, for your whole organization, I would encourage you to use 24 hours. Because if somebody has their top three priorities, they're focused on it for the day, and they get an important or an urgent email, if they know they've got until noon the next day to respond to it, they don't have to shift gears. They don't have to shift focus. They can stay focused getting their most important work done and prioritize that tomorrow. So this is what we're talking about again, about creating a more respectful environment so others can be more productive. So then once you come up with that, you want to then look at your communication tools. So personal recommendation is that if it's true emergency, that's when everybody picks up that old fashioned phone and calls each other. Or that's when you knock on the door over somebody's focus time sign because it's that much of an emergency. Otherwise, default to the other communication tools. So emails, chat, and channels. Channels are a brilliant communication tool. If you're not exploring them yet in Microsoft Teams or in Slack, they're exceptional. But those can only be passive communication tools if people are allowed to turn all the notifications off, right? And they're going to allow the interruptions on their terms. Kind of see how that's fitting together. And enter into chat. I'm curious if anything in this section is resonating with you. It might be an action item for you. And then lastly, once you've come up with what's the definition of urgent, you should start using it in your communication, right? Put it in your subject line. And then people know when they're triaging email, they see the word urgent, they know that's the next email they should read. Equally important, you should put a farther out date. So one of the things leaders don't realize is when they send an email, everybody in the company drops everything to respond to their email because they think they have to. And so I was having this conversation with the leadership team at a printing company, and at this point they started laughing. And I said, "Okay, what's so funny?" And they said, "Well, we needed you last week." I'm like, "Okay, what happened?" And they said, "Well, the COO sent the CFO an email. The CFO was working on something, but saw the pop up, saw it from the COO. So she dropped what she was doing. She opened up the email. She read every detail of this contract. She signed the contract. She got it back to the CO as fast as she could." And I said, "Well, what was so funny about that?" And they said, "Well, it was a contract for snow removal and it was July." Like, no joke. And this is what happens. So again, if you're a leader in your organization and you want to create a respectful culture, put like, I need a response a week from Friday or something, or in this case, I need a response by September, right? Like something that indicates you don't need to drop everything, even though it's coming from a leader. So is there anything in here that resonates with you? We have the attention level of a gnat. I love it. Is there anything in here that's resonating with people? Any nugget that you think might be good to bring back for your organization? Just curious. So just the whole idea. You can also do this with external. You can do it with customers, but I always recommend figuring out internally first. So yeah, love it, Frank. Call me for an emergency, right? Because right now everybody's picking their communication tool of choice because the organization's not guiding them on what's the right communication. So everybody has to keep all the noise popping up to use. Awesome, Frank. We use chat for immediate answers, naming standard. Love it, Nicola. That's great. Perfect. Okay, so again, this is an example of creating a culture of productivity. Part of that is clarifying expectations. So letting people know, when you onboard people into your company, like what's urgent, what's an emergency, what's a response time, what the heck does focus time mean, all those kind of things. Is anybody familiar with the Gallup Q12 as in question 12? The Gallup Q12. So Gallup's done a ton of research on employee engagement. So nobody so far. Gallup has done a ton of research on employee engagement. And Gallup came up with 100 questions you could ask your employees to find out if they're happy. Your employees are not going to be happy answering a 100-question survey. So Gallup shrank it down to the 12 most important questions. If you do not have an employee engagement survey, just Google Gallup Q is in question 12, get the 12 questions and use your survey. They've done all the research for you. You can't really improve on it. But what I want you to know about that is of the 12 most important questions they think you should ask your employees, the third most important question they recommend is, do I know what's expected of me at work? right? Do I know if I can block my calendar for quiet, uninterrupted time? Do I know how quickly I need to respond to internal emails? Everything we're talking about here is the clarity that your employees want. And when you provide that structure and guidance, their engagement goes way up. Their job satisfaction goes up along with productivity. So again, it's about creating a common culture. Everybody should know what these terms mean. And it's about empowering people. Again, boldly role modeling and empowering people to follow all these kind of things. So just stop and think, like, is it, am I interrupting the person? Is it an emergency? But if you come back and you're like, I just want to talk to the person because we don't want to hide behind technology all the time. You're like, it'd be more productive if we just had a conversation. I don't want you still to interrupt them if it's not really a true emergency. So I'm going to bring you back to the handy dandy to do apps. And any to do app has this sort of feature. You can actually create lists. So you could create a list for everybody you interrupt all the time. Something pops up in your head and you assess it's not an emergency, but I really want to talk to them versus send them an email or a chat message or whatever. And so you put that thought into the list. And so somebody had brought up that we waste our thoughts every day, right? So it's a great way to capture, this is a thought that I need to share with somebody, and I'm going to put it on their list. What makes the Microsoft To Do app better than other apps right now is the integration. So you can actually, in the Microsoft To Do app, you can assign that list permanently to that person. And every time you add something on your To Do app to that list, it shows up in their To Do app in the assigned to you area. And that's just beginning to scratch the surface on all the integrations within the Microsoft 365 suite. So it's pretty cool. Okay. All right. I'm going to share some data with you because, again, you're probably thinking these tips seem pretty kind of simple, right? Like, are they really powerful? So if I could like survey all of you in a month and come back with those results, that would be my favorite because I'd love to see what you did and the impact. But I don't have that data, so I'm just sharing some recent coaching results. Somebody we just coached the last month or so. Grant was the director of engineering, again, struggling with what a lot of people struggle with, right? Too much work. He was working long hours, had to work weekends. He was exhausted. I was actually worried about burnout with him, right? But he was a very talented individual. And so we had Grant fill out our survey. So we, many, many years ago, decided, well, let me back up. 56% of our leads come from customer referrals. So we're like, all right, we're doing something right because people are telling their friends to hire us. But we had no data to show the ROI of when people implement these ideas. And so we came up with a 1 minute survey. And these are the results I'm going to be showing you because Grant filled out our 1 minute survey just like we do. We do it a month after any training session, and we do it at the end of any sort of coaching. And Grant basically said, and this is all subjective, Grant said that we increased his productivity by 20, over 20%. Does anybody know, can anybody translate that to how much time that is for him in a week? He basically has an entire extra day in his week. And not that he's adding on one more work day. He's been so efficient during the week, he's actually gained back 8 hours. So how would you like to have 8 hours or yeah, one extra day in your week back to you? That'd be great. And then we said, well, what are you doing with this extra time? So if you're in a revenue generating role, are you increasing revenue? If you're in an operational role, are you reducing costs? And Grant said, he actually calculated just for him, just changing his productivity, he was actually able to increase the organization's revenue by $200,000, just him. And the reason was it is because he had been a bottleneck. He wasn't taking the time to think strategically. He wasn't kicking off new projects. And now he was better organized, had better structure. So he was kicking off projects sooner. And so those projects then would be rolled out to the rest of the organization to work on. And that's increasing revenue by over $200,000, just him. It's the last two metrics, though, I really want you to pay attention to, because again, to me, this is the long game where we're all headed. He said his stress has decreased by 30%. How would you like to have your stress decreased by 30%? I'll take that one. And job satisfaction went up over 20%. So yeah, Alexander, we, in this day and age, everybody's really getting close to burnout. We need to do everything we can to protect our employees. So the key message I want you to have here is employee engagement is the unintended side effect of teaching people how to work smarter. So you not just get the productivity benefits, the revenue increases, but people want to stay working at your organization because it's a respectful environment. They can get the most important work done and everybody's following the same rules. So I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping up. The good news is we met Doug's original goals. We stopped the burnout across the law firm. So we coached all of the attorneys within the 50-person law firm. We did some training sessions, different things, all about productivity related strategies. And but it wasn't until Doug nominated me for a leadership award that I saw in print in a magazine the impact that this advice can have if the leader embraces it and brings it back to the entire organization. So what Doug's quote said is that working with us increased productivity, or working with my company, increased their productivity by 30%. And they track this by looking at increased billable hours. So I don't know what your attorney charges, but a 50-person law firm that's now 30% more profitable, I would say that's quite a bump, like in the millions for sure. The best part of the quote, though, is this reoccurring theme. He said, everybody's much happier. They continue to be best places to work. People are recruiting their friends to work there because it's a respectful environment. They get their most important work done. Their stress levels are lower. Um, and it gets even better. Had I known Doug was going to say this, I would have had a video camera up at my book launch party right in front of his face. But Doug was on a panel with a number of my clients talking about the benefits of the book and what's in the book and all that. And the he's what he said, what did he say? He goes, oh, he said, give or take a couple attorneys that never want to change their ways, right? We all have those kind of curmudgeons that don't want to change as much as you train and teach and all that kind of stuff. He said, besides those couple people, he said the entire law firm is still 30% more efficient 5 years later. And every time I talk to Doug, there's one more year, because Doug made it part of their culture. We built it into their onboarding. We built it into their performance reviews. So everybody understood creating a respectful work environment was a really key piece of the culture they wanted to create. So just sharing that with you. So I'm just going to be wrapping up, and then we're going to go ahead and open up for, I want you to be ready to share your action items, and we're going to open up for Q&A. Just a reminder, so again, you would bring us in if you want more time back in your day, plain and simple. That's the end zone for a productivity consultant. So the services that we offer, we do productivity coaching. I work with executives. My teams work with everybody else in the organization. And we do individual and team coaching. We do Microsoft 365 consulting, so helping you leverage the power of that suite of tools, take advantage of the integrations, all those things. And then we also do productivity training, both soft skill and software. So training end users on all of the apps, like somebody brought up OneNote, different tools, we train on all those things. And then we also train on all soft skill related things like effective delegation and how to run an effective meeting and procrastination and lots of things. So you can scan the QR code to learn more about us. Also, if you're interested, scan the QR code. We'll send you a copy of the PowerPoint, and I'll also send you our Microsoft Copilot demo. I do believe, I totally agree with ELB's philosophy that it's not just about the AI tool you use, it's about how you roll it out across the organization. Couldn't agree more with that. But again, if you're a Microsoft shop, you should definitely be looking at the Microsoft Copilot paid version to really leverage the data within your Microsoft environment. The other thing we'll send are just some case studies that tell you about the power of, again, some of our strategies and things. So if you're interested. Okay, this is the fun part. So do me a favor, start entering into chat your action items. And again, hoping everybody has at least one. Oh, thanks, Bo. I appreciate that. I just don't think people understand the power of the ideas. So I really appreciate that. Enter into chat, and you can take a minute because we've covered a lot of stuff. You want to look at your notes. But what's at least one action item? Maybe you have a couple that you're going to do for yourself. Are you going to bring back to your team because you're going to boldly role model, or you're going to bring it back to an entire department or company? So yeah, often Alexandria, that's great. Focus on the hard stuff and the productive stuff in the AM. Yeah. Oh, and the top three. Perfect. Yeah, I tell you what, it's so satisfying to do that. Oh, Frank, that's a great list. Use the team set status message. Okay. Yep. Focus time. Yay, Lindsay, you love the bold or the big words. It's perfect. Putting your book in our leader competency model. Oh, I love it. Tori, you're my favorite so far. Oh, Frank, that's okay. It can be all about you. It's all right. It's whatever level of help you need today. I'm happy to provide it. So, perfect. Yeah. Brand door signs. Oh, love it. Door hangers, productivity. I'm going to declutter and get tidy. Awesome. Any other action items coming out? Yeah, do not disturb during project time. Yeah, it's crazy how much we get distracted and our brain just yeah. And it really is once you get distracted, it's really hard to be back and focused. We're kidding ourselves for sure. So awesome. Okay, these are great. So let's go ahead. We'll open up for Q&A. I just need a couple, like 2 minutes at the end to kind of wrap us up. So let's see if anybody has any questions. Casey wanted me to allow time for Q&A. So Casey, anything coming through in the Q&A section?
Not yet. I just put in a note too to remind people that they can drop some questions in, but none yet.
Okay, and we can talk about anything related to productivity. It doesn't just have to be this time management stuff, but um, yeah. Thanks everybody for joining. You are a great group. Thanks for being on the chat. It's hard when you can't see faces. So I know you're alive and listening, so that's good. Oh, Pinar, thank you. Thank you for being here. So
We did
perfect.
just,
Betsy's going to do top three. Yep. Oh, go ahead, Casey.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. We did just get a quick question that came in. Bo is asking, what is your experience with Google Task versus Microsoft offering?
Ooh, I'm so glad you asked that. Google is actually coming back. 2 years ago, I would have definitely told you to jump off Google because security was bad, all that kind of stuff. But Google's actually changed their business model. They used to really work well with other software, but now they're starting to follow what was Microsoft's old model, where they're building out organically within the Google suite of tools. So we're starting to see more integrations because they're all Google tools versus third-party tools. Google Tasks does not have the feature of creating a list and sharing that list yet, but it probably will in a year or so. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But I'm not. I never want to tell people to jump ship from Google because it's really coming back as a better platform. But Microsoft is totally beating it right now, and I would say 90% of companies are on Microsoft. When you reach a certain size, it makes more sense to be on the Microsoft suite. So, but I do feel good about that. Microsoft's doing the opposite. They're actually now making friends with other companies. So they finally work well on Apple and they have integrations like with SharePoint and DocuSign. And so they're kind of following Google's model, which is really fascinating.
Tori has a good question too. What are ways to help adapt productivity with meetings, et cetera, when your company operates within different time zones?
Oh, yeah. Well, most of our clients that have multiple time zones, they figure out what is the acceptable time for everybody to meet just by looking at time zones. And typically, if you've got pretty extreme time zones like India or whatever, it might be 7 in the morning and that kind of stuff. But the key thing with that would definitely be defining the time of day that works best for everybody to have meetings. And then everybody else can kind of work around, do their focus time around that, is a suggestion I have. I'll tell you though, if you start using the Microsoft 365 technology, you don't really have as many meetings. And same with Google Workspace as they continue to improve because everything's moving over into new communication tools that are more effective. And so we always say, typically meetings are called because people aren't communicating effectively or they're not collaborating effectively. And when you start using the new tech for those particular reasons, meetings go significantly down. So that might be another thing to really look at for sure.
We got another really good question. This one is kind of long, so bear with me.
Okay.
They said, enjoy the content and your energy. I
Oh,
know this could be a powerful unlock for my organization, but they undervalue people stuff and training, coaching that takes people, quote unquote, off task. I know you shared the ROI, but decision makers might push back that there's no time to adopt new approaches, just perform. So, what are your thoughts about the pitch for a highly transactional culture?
I couldn't agree with you more. I speak all the time to CEO groups because I do believe this conversations need to start at the top or nothing's going to change. And it frustrates me and drives me crazy that some leaders do not see the value in training. So I hear you loud and clear, and it's a very real concern. So we've started to really provide more data. I think a lot of times that if you can translate it to dollars, then leaders understand. And so again, that's why we do our four question survey. And we say just coaching this one person, which cost barely anything, they got $200,000 more coming into the company. So it's translating it to time. And we have one translation we always do, like we send it out a lot, that if you just took somebody with an average salary, let's say $60 an hour, and you save them 30 minutes in a day. And that doesn't seem like a lot of time, but when you annualize that, it's basically over $7,000 that you save the company. And so if you're comparing like a training cost of a $7,000 class and really the ROI on that, all you have to have is one person actually get a half hour back in their day, which is not that hard at all, especially with AI these days. So I feel your pain, and that's the angle that we've been trying to do, is just translating it to dollars, because a lot of people just can't translate, like where there is waste, it's intangible in organizations. There's no proof of the time waste and the technology waste. And so it's a hard argument, but yeah, I'd love to partner with you if you figure out how to get them to pay attention, because it's what we're trying to do. It's a great question. Thank you.
Right? That was a really great question. And the last one that I saw come through. So thank you so much, Jan. I knew this was going to be a great session, and you did not disappoint.
Thank you.
Nor did any of our participants. Such good
Oh,
information
you're
sharing in the
awesome.
chat. Like just really, really great information. So thank you guys so much. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to send a link of the recording to everybody, so you'll be able to pass this around to your colleagues, and connect with Jan too. We'll include a link to her LinkedIn account as well in that email. So thank you all so, so very much. And thank you so much, Jan. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. All right. Nice to see you. Well, I didn't see you. Nice to chat with everyone. All right. Take care. Thank
Thanks,
you.
y'all. Bye.